Hello and welcome to another episode of Cyberspeak with Infosec, the weekly podcast where industry thought leaders share their knowledge and experiences in order to help us all stay one step ahead of the bad guys. As part of Infosec's effort to close the skills gap and empower people through security education, Cyberspeak will continue to be speaking with diverse and interesting women in the cybersecurity industry and hearing their stories, including today's guest. Anu Yamunan, Vice President, Product Management and Research at Exabeam, brings 18 years of experience in designing and building enterprise software and security products. Prior to joining Exabeam, she held senior-level product management roles at MapR Technologies, Imperva, and EMC Data Domain, building industry-leading products in application security and backup storage markets. Anu has an MS in computer science from Arizona State University and an MBA from Santa Clara University. Anu, thank you very much for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Chris. A pleasure to be joining you over this call. Yeah.
Lovely. So to start at the very beginning, as we do with all our guests, how and when did you first get started and get interested in computers and security?
So I would say, even as early as grade 7, and, I feel like computers and math and science are very interconnected because it requires a certain level of analytical abilities.
Right.
Until my grade 6, I was always scared to attempt math problems. Math was always a scary topic, scary subject for me. And my grade 6 teacher kind of changed my perspective on how I approach problems, how I solve quantitative topics. And that's kind of my first foray into STEM, science, technology. And my first introduction into computers was in my junior year at high school. That was the first time I saw a computer.
Right.
And that was the first time I kind of started playing with a computer. And then I also, beyond the games, it kind of opened up my world in terms of what technology can do.
Yeah. So you connected to it pretty solidly, though.
Yeah. So from that time, I knew that I wanted to get my bachelor's degree in computer science. I did my master's degree in computer science. I started my career as an engineer at HP right out of college, and then spent a few years as an engineer, technical lead, and then decided to kind of have a bigger say in kind of building products, designing products, and then stepped into product management.
I see.
But I see each of these steps as kind of a building block of where I am as a person, kind of, yeah.
So walk me through your everyday workday with Exabeam. A lot of our listeners are sort of getting started in the industry, or maybe are still sort of working help desk or doing things like that. So what are some job duties or tasks that you perform every day, and what are some of your favorite aspects of the job?
So at Exabeam, kind of my role is I lead all products, design, threat research, security research, and security analytics. So it's a pretty broad portfolio. From a day-to-day perspective, my workday can range from talking to customers, talking to sales, enabling sales and sales engineering, to working with engineering on next set of products and features that we need to build, working with my innovation and research team in terms of what's next coming up in the cybersecurity space, what are the new threats, what are the things that we need to build, either from a data science perspective or a machine learning perspective, and working with the support organization, dealing with either customers post sales. So it's a very broad set of things that I would be doing on a day-to-day basis, depending upon the day of the week. The types of things that I do would also differ. So what I really enjoy is the breadth that comes with my role, the things that I touch on a daily basis. So there's both the inbound part, which is more around building products and defining features and kind of making things available to the market, and the outbound part, talking to customers, understanding their needs, and enabling our sales to sell more of our products.
So you've had a pretty impressive career so far, and in your bio, it notes that you've held senior level product management roles at MapR and Imperva and EMC Data Domain, building industry leading products and application security and backup storage markets. However, for many listeners who might want these type of jobs but are still in lower level positions, they might not know how to make the next move. So what were some of the jobs you had before this, and what skills did you learn on each job that helped you to sort of springboard into these dynamic and high profile positions?
Absolutely. So my first job, like I mentioned, was as an engineer.
Okay.
And it's always good to have that first break, when you're coming out of college, and you learn a lot in terms of what products need to be built and how do you kind of learning skills on the go. But that said, for me, the hard break was changing from an engineer to a product manager.
Okay.
Because when you're looking at kind of the macro perspective, you have a much broader role that rather than just the component or feature that you're working on, that you're building on, so forth. You need to understand the market needs. You need to understand the competitive landscape. You need to understand what what customers are willing, whether they're willing to pay money to buy your product, whether that product serves a larger market need, what's your total addressable market, and then working on the execution side in terms of prioritizing features and so forth. So kind of changing my role from an engineer to a product manager was a very hard break. And the way I went about it is I was looking at ways to help out my then PM team. So I was kind of going beyond what I was doing on a day-to-day as an engineer. I took on helping them out to begin with. In the meanwhile, I also bolstered my kind of, to a certain degree, you also need the tool set to be able to kind of do some of the things that I mentioned.
Right.
So I decided to get my part-time MBA. While I was kind of learning on the job on the product management side, I also decided that I need some more tools to help me with my, where I want to be from a career perspective. So both of those together is what kind of helped me move into product management. The thing that I would tell people that are either joining the field right now is don't be scared to wear multiple hats. There's always the comfort zone that you need to get out of. Everybody has the fear of unknown. Embrace it. I always think about it from the perspective of I have a lot to gain, and what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. Yes.
Does it? Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's and the worst thing that happens is you learn a new skill that you don't need at the immediate moment.
That's right. And from that perspective, I would also say this wasn't possible when I moved into product management. My first product management role was at HP.
Okay.
I've been with Exabeam for 4 years, leading the product and design team. The 4 years that I've spent here in a startup, you get to wear so many different hats. You get to experience some of the things that you probably would not experience kind of in a bigger company where there are more established roles and processes and whatnot. So one thing I would encourage folks would be also to kind of experience that startup, building something from the scratch or being part of something that's early on.
Yeah, that opportunity to, like you say, wear multiple hats and try different things.
Yep.
So tell me about some of your current work in the realms of data science and machine learning. I mean, this isn't an area of expertise that we've had on CyberSpeak. So just to start at the beginning, for those new to the terms, what are data science and machine learning?
Yeah, at a high level, data science and machine learning is kind of the category of technology algorithms that allow kind of software applications predict based on kind of the data that's being collected. What I mean by that is, let me give you kind of concrete examples, right?
Yes, please.
When Netflix uses, all viewers, all the folks that are listening to this probably are very familiar with Netflix.
Yes.
They look at kind of purchase behavior, usage behavior of users, kind of based on your demographic, based on your gender, based on kind of your profile, based on what you've done in the past. They kind of predict what the movie recommendations for the future.
Right.
Similarly, we all are part of LinkedIn. We are part of the professional network. LinkedIn gives you recommendations in terms of jobs. Hey, here's, I see you here with your capabilities in these spectrum. Here's a new job that's available to you. Or here are people that you need to connect and so forth. All of that is essentially machine learning or data science underneath. It's using volumes of data, big data, so to speak, and automatically using algorithms and based on kind of usage patterns and profiles and behaviors, figuring out what the next best course of action is. Okay. So with that kind of that's at a high level is machine learning or data science for dummies, right? Now, what are we doing at Exabeam is taking that approach to detect cybersecurity threats.
Okay.
And I can elaborate a little bit more on what we are doing in terms of machine learning and data science, if that's okay.
Yeah. Oh, please, please, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you look at kind of Exabeam, what we do is we kind of build fingerprints or profiles similar to kind of the Netflix analogy or the LinkedIn analogy. We are using machine learning to apply to the cybersecurity space.
Okay.
what we do in an environment is sit within an environment and kind of build fingerprints and profiles of users and devices within the environment. Which laptops do I typically connect from? Which devices do I typically connect to? How many volume of records, how many emails do I send? Who do I send emails to? What time of the day do I join? What are the types of web activities that I do on a daily basis? And we build these profiles. And why is it important? Is to identify threats in an environment. The threat can be what is called a compromised insider, as in somebody taking over my credentials and trying to move laterally within the environment and siphon off data. That's one type of threat. The second type of threat is more of a malicious insider. This is an insider that has access to the intellectual property, that has the access to kind of all kinds of information in the environment, and maybe he leaves the company, he or she leaves the company and then walk away with that critical wealth of knowledge. So we are there as an Exabeam. We are in the cybersecurity analytics play. That market is called SIEM, SIEM, stands for Security Information Event Management. It's a $4 billion market. And we are disrupting that space with our technology, where we are identifying both the insider threat, the malicious insider and the compromised insiders.
Right. Now, if someone were interested in sort of getting into this type of work, specifically working with, machine learning and so forth, what kind of background would you recommend for them, in terms of education, certification, job skills, soft skills?
So there are kind of variety of roles in this space.
Okay.
Right. You can become a product person like me. Yep. There, what you would need is more a lot of analytic skills, math, computer science, data analysis, and so forth. You can be somebody like a security analyst or a CISO type of a profile, where your mission is you're operationalizing and kind of bringing cybersecurity products into your environment and triaging alerts, working on alerts, dealing with forensics and so forth. And there's a significant career there as well, where you're a practitioner and you're making sure that your organization is secure.
Okay.
And then there's the whole, I want to be an implementer. I want to be a professional. I want to be a consultant in the space. Again, there's a lot of room for growth there as well. So in terms of kind of what I would say is things that you could do, find what you care about in the cybersecurity space, whether it's a product, it's a consulting, it's a security practitioner, it's a designer, product designer. For example, I want to build things that are pretty, that are usable, that are user-friendly, and so forth. There's a design path as well. So there are a lot of opportunities in the cybersecurity space. In fact, cybersecurity is the most underemployed space in the industry, in that there are way too many job openings available, too few resources or too few people available to kind of occupy those positions. So this market is kind of seeing boom right now.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, we've had plenty of episodes on the skills gap right now.
Yeah.
So that's so the other reason I wanted to talk to you, as I mentioned at the start of the show, is that we're interested in hearing stories from women in the cybersecurity industry who, not speaking out of school when I say, women comprise a small minority of the cybersecurity landscape overall. So what has been your experience as a woman in the cyber security field? What are some specific challenges and setbacks that you've had to endure that are not likely put upon men of similar background or skill set?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the things about, me being, I'm used to being the sole woman in the room, to the point that I don't notice this anymore. That is true. It's been, I've been in the space, like you mentioned, for 18 years. The thing that I am more encouraged about is I'm happy to see more and more women in cybersecurity.
Yes,
I see many more women CISOs now than 5 years ago. And I also see women CISOs leading kind of large organizations, large enterprises.
Oh yeah.
Kind of speaking from my experience, I talked about what kind of challenges me, what makes me kind of exciting. What makes my role exciting is the fact that I kind of deal with the breadth of things.
Yeah.
And I feel like stereotypes aside, women have the innate ability to multitask, juggle multiple projects at the same time.
Okay.
They also kind of bring the diversity in terms of attention to detail. I feel like women, again, innately speak, regardless of generalizations. I feel like in addition to kind of being able to multitask, they bring a different perspective that kind of rounds out the different roles that are needed in an organization.
Right.
Okay. And the attention to detail. So there are projects that require a lot more attention to detail. I feel like women are a lot more stronger in that particular regard. So, I mean, I like I said, while I see a lot more women taking on bigger roles within organizations, the one thing that I feel like we, as a woman, we are also risk averse. We are also more cautious when we try to grab onto larger opportunities. We always think thrice before we feel that we are the right person for it. And if I contrast that with a generic man, like, they grab opportunities much more easier than women do.
Right. Just kind of go for it.
Go for it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to that end, I've also, heard tech leaders say things, like we'd like to have more women at our company, but none of them answer our job application. So is there a way that, sort of crafting job listings or targeting women correctly as part of the process? Do you find that at Exabeam that it's harder to find women candidates, or are there more just coming through the door?
Actually, I find like compared to all my previous jobs and previous organizations, Exabeam has a lot of diversity across variety of positions, not just in product, not just in programs, in marketing, in sales operations, in professional services, in design. We have a pretty good representation of women in the company. That said, I feel like it's less of, my perspective is it's not just crafting the job listing to target women. It's more about, I think women want to join companies where they feel like they have the strong support system, they know that they're valued. It's about, showcasing how you're embracing diversity, whether it's women, whether it's minorities, whether it's, other groups. So making sure that you highlight as a company, you highlight diversity, and kind of embracing diversity is key to bring in more talent. I feel like a word of mouth and things like, your reviews are either on LinkedIn or Glassdoor or whatnot makes a much more stronger impact in recruiting talent than what you say in the job listing itself.
Right. Yeah. And I guess, the tech industry is starting to wake up to this, but how do we make the tech industry understand that more women in tech ultimately makes the entire industry stronger and more capable of solving these kind of problems?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I think the key part here is that, if you look at very successful companies like Google, they want, even when universities kind of bring in applicants, they are not looking for a cookie cutter. They want diversity. And the idea is that when you're working on complex projects, different types of ideas is what makes projects successful. Different skill set, different strengths, and even different weaknesses is what kind of the complementary factors what makes projects successful. So from that perspective, I think more and more companies are waking up to the fact that, hey, you need more diversity in the teams and most of us are doing complex jobs. It requires variety of skill set, and we are kind of pulling engineers, product design, sales engineering and whatnot to kind of make a specific project successful. And from that perspective, having women, having the ability to multitask, having the ability to pay attention to detail are skills that women bring. And I think more and more companies are waking up to that.
Well, so another thing that, I've seen occasionally is that you do get, a diverse team that brings out, different opinions. And, that's great in terms of actual problem solving. But then you have the sort of leaderships that like, well, I've already sort of decided what I wanted and I was hoping for, a rubber stamp on it, so then you have the problem of like, now we have this diverse, staff that brings like all these sort of different approaches. And is there some sort of like finessing that needs to be done on leadership levels to understand that not only do you get more opinions, but more opinions are actually useful?
Yeah, definitely. Let me kind of probably give you a concrete example, right?
Yes, please.
In our, at Exabeam, we have data scientists that are women too, and I feel like, one of the problems that we built with our whole smart timelines, the ability kind of look at the user behavior in their general workday and finding anomalies and so forth, are built by our data, with our data science and engineering teams. And some of them are women, and they are pretty strong technical talent. And there is that marriage of, the diverse perspectives and diverse skills that built the product to where it is today.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, having worked in information security or product management, security, and so forth for so long, what are some tips you would give to women entering, the field?
So my biggest piece of advice would be to kind of do not be afraid to use your voice. Typically, now going back to your previous question, the diverse perspectives, diverse ideas, at the end of the day, you still need to make a call.
Yes.
And I see in most meetings, men are a lot more vocal than women.
Yep.
Part of it is that both women don't like either confrontation, or they do not want to kind of make either not seem confrontational, not seem supremely confident, and so forth. My take is, if you have a perspective, we do not want your voice. We do not want anybody's voice not to be heard.
Yes.
So my take is, do not be afraid to use your voice, bring your perspective. We all bring different ideas and strengths. Be confident in what you're good at, pursue, what you're passionate about, kind of let that be the focal point, not the stereotypes.
Yeah. So for companies trying to recruit more women and minority professionals, what should they do not only to find these candidates, but make them desirable, to the professionals that they're trying to recruit? Is there something that, when you say, people are more likely to come to a company that shows diversity, in its ranks, but how do we sort of like let potential candidates know, like, this is a sort of welcoming space?
So one of the things that we have done at Exabeam is we have monthly women's lunches, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a women's forum where we come together. It started with maybe 10 people when over 3 years ago, and now we have around 50 people that are part of this. And we are from diverse backgrounds, diverse ethnicities, different diverse kind of academic backgrounds, different roles that we have within the organization. But we are there to support each other. We are there to mentor each other. We are there to learn from each other. And we capture that, and we make that available even on exabeam.com to show that, or LinkedIn, we dress up on occasions, or we have fun for certain, birthdays and celebrations and whatnot, baby showers and whatnot. All of that makes both the emotional, the social bonding that happens is important, so that people kind of feel that they're part of a community, right? And now going back to how do you recruit, how do you hire? So one of the ways that we feel, regardless of women or not, where we feel like we are very successful in hiring is through referral programs. Friends want friends to come over and work, and I'm using the term friends broadly, right? If you like the place that you work for, you pull in other people that you want, whether you know them personally or not, you want to kind of make them work for the company as well. So I see that the referral program and, using your connections to bring people in, it seems to be extremely successful here at Exabeam. And I think that the other thing that always comes up when you're discussing women's career growth and so forth is always that work-life balance, right?
Yes.
I battle with that. That's always a struggle, and it's I have 2 daughters. So there's always that question of, when you're taking on the more senior role, an exec role, a leadership role, there's always that and especially in a startup, which is growing as fast as we are, there's always that struggle to balance your work and life. There's no doubt about it. There's no question about it. You do need a strong support system. You do need a strong support system, both at work as well as kind of in your personal life, to be able to juggle that.
Yeah. So as we wrap up today, where do you see are the interesting sort of innovations that are going to be coming in data science and machine learning in the years to come? What are some of the things on the horizon that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, maybe I'll start a little bit on kind of where we came from, right?
Okay.
If you look at 5 years ago, we kind of went out with the mission of most of the legacy SIMs were created prior to the big data influx. They are on older technology, and they were born out of a compliance checkbox. They were not solving the problem of detecting cyber security threats.
Right.
So we started Exabeam as a company where we were the helper for SIMs to begin with, where our mission was to detect the insider threat, the malicious and the compromised insider, and threats like data exfiltration, data leaving the company, and so forth.
Sure.
But we always were built with big data in mind, leveraging the big data technologies like Hadoop and Elasticsearch and so forth. But one of our core competitive differentiators is the whole smart timeline, where we collate user and device behavior and make sure that we can keep the scent of the user regardless of the user changing credentials or the device changing IP addresses and so forth. That's kind of how we were born as a company. Beyond the machine learning and data science and fingerprinting profiles, that's our core IP. Wow. And then around 3 years ago, we branched out into not just being a helper on top of SIMs, we became the next gen SIM. That has always been our mission, and kind of we executed on that mission, where we now have an offering that's called the Exabeam Security Intelligence Platform that collects logs, aggregates logs in the data lake product, detects threats on our advanced analytics products, and responds and automates response through our incident responder product. Now, in terms of the next set of capabilities that we are looking at, is obviously the detects are threats are often evolving, they're morphing, they're becoming more and more sophisticated. It means that we are always innovating in terms of machine learning and data science. One example is, one of the main concerns of organization is data leaving the company, right? Whether that data is a credit card data, customer data, intellectual property, your core IP or whatnot. And data can leave in a variety of ways. It can leave via email, it can leave via cloud, especially now that everything is connected to the cloud. It can leave via printing paper. Like, I print a copy of the file on a paper and take it out. I can take USB. There are different types of media available. Yep. And one of the innovations that we are doing is identifying what are the personal email addresses of a user, so that we can then alert on somebody sending confidential information or abnormal volume of information to their email account. Right. So while that's a specific example, you can see that kind of as the threats are evolving, we are kind of using variety of data science approaches to identify insider threat. Another example is, usually, attackers spoof devices within an environment. They come with their own bot and they spoof a device. But to a normal eye, it might look normal, but when you use machine learning, you can identify that device is an anomalous asset. It's an asset that seems like a bot, that seems like an attacker, and present that results to the security professionals, to the SOC team.
Wow. So if people want to find more about you or Exabeam, where can they go online?
So regarding me, I have my LinkedIn profile, linkedin.com/Yamunan. I'm also on the exabeam.com website as part of the execs team. With regards to the company itself, again, we are pretty active on social media. We are active on, you can find more details on exabeam.com. We're always looking for talent in terms of hiring. If anybody's interested in joining the company, go to careers. LinkedIn.com/company/Exabeam is where they can find more about the company. We're also on Twitter. We are also on Instagram. So on the Instagram, you will find us embracing our diversity, having fun while we work hard. We also play hard. So you can see all those aspects that I talked about.
That's great. And that's exabeam.com. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
Anu, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you. My pleasure. Yeah, it was an honor.
And thank you all today for listening and watching. If you enjoyed today's video, you can find many more on our YouTube page. Just go to YouTube and type in Cyber Speak with Infosec to check out our collection of tutorials, interviews, and past webinars. If you'd rather have us in your ears during your workday, all of our videos are also available as audio podcasts, including this one. Just search Cyber Speak with Infosec in your favorite podcast app. To see the current promotional offers available for podcast listeners and to learn more about our Infosec Pro live boot camps, Infosec Skills on-demand training library, and Infosec IQ security awareness and training platform, go to www.infosecinstitute.com/podcast or click the link in the description below. Thank you once again to Anu Yamunan at Exabeam, and thank you all for watching and listening. We'll speak to you next week.